Hello, everyone. For the audience that doesn't know you, feel free to introduce yourself.
Yes, so George, it's good to be here. Name is Alex, founder of Born to Lead. Work with a lot of personal brands, a lot of the brands you find on Instagram and TikTok. And our mission is to make sure that we help them, who are, quite frankly, some of the best people I've ever met, to make sure they do the good work, change lives, and ultimately hit financial freedom.
Talk to me about how you got started. Because I don't take you as the type of guy that just was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, unless if you were, in which case you still did well.
No, I grew up on a farm. So I very much grew up in just south of Pittsburgh. And anybody knows a little bit about Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh is very much a blue collar town. Pretty much, I can tell you two things. Number one, you probably had a Fermanti sandwich, which is pretty much coleslaw, fries, roast beef, basically sandwiched over buttered bread, and two, you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. So very much a very low key, humble type of town and very similar to mindset. And I think the values I know for myself, George, and I think that those are things I still hold dear to this day. And they come from my father and my mother, and there's two things there. That number one, that you gotta love work, because anything you want to do in this life that's worthwhile is going to require work. And the second thing is that you better do right by people, and that's where I think integrity comes in. So no matter what I say or do, and don't be wrong, there's no such thing as perfectionism. I try to do what's right by other people first and foremost.
So ultimately, what you're doing now is effectively business coaching, right? I mean, I have your Instagram open right now too, alongside the questions, and you know, business coach is how you describe yourself. And so what did it look like when you were building the business, right? Like, what was that process of building a business? Because everybody's is different, right? What was yours? Was it like a lot of outreach, emailing people, self-advertising? What was it?
A lot of the things that I kind of find when it comes to growing a business, like a coaching business, because that wasn't my first foray. I've been in the entrepreneur world for about 12 years. So I've had, it's funny enough, George, I was counting the other day, I've had 37 failures, 37 ideas or 37 businesses I tried to do and did not work. And thankfully I've had a few. So one of the first things I tell everybody is that, like, the first thing you have to know is that you don't have to get every business right. You just simply, for most people, you have to get one or two right in your lifetime. And I hope that gives everybody a chance to understand that, like, at the end of the day, that should give you some excitement. It should give you the excitement that every single mistake and every single business, and every single idea, and every single thing you do, you should be looking for the mistakes. You should actually be looking for the problems. You should be looking for the gaps in your skills, or quite frankly, the gaps that you never want to fill, and actually find people that actually do those things very well. So the first thing I tell everybody is that as you're kind of going through this journey, is to make sure that no matter where you are and what age or what thing, is that you're actually trying to find the problems. You're trying to find the things you need to get better at, because ultimately, when you fix those enough, you'll find a great business. For me as a business coach, I keep it very simple, because I find that a lot of the people in the coaching industry, I find two things: that a lot of them focus so much on marketing and sales. They focus so much on the front end of their business. They're trying to perfect their Instagram. They're trying to perfect their posts. They're trying to perfect their funnel. They're trying to perfect all that stuff. They forget what matters. And what matters is the client. So the way I actually started my business was pretty simple there, but it's allowed me to actually keep over 70% of our clients for 3 or more years. We've grown hundreds and hundreds over several years. But I think that when you actually build a program and delivery system that actually gets clients results, that actually at this point, we have over 90% success rate with clients actually improving their financial well-being, improving their own businesses. I think it makes it easier. Your word of mouth grows a lot faster. Your reputation goes a lot farther. And ultimately, instead of you having to do the heavy lifting and spending so much on trying to attract people, your reputation precedes itself. And I've kind of held true to that to this day.
What does your creative process look like? When you're sitting there thinking like anything through any problem, what does your own process look like when you're sitting there and saying like, how do I do this? What's a new idea? So on and so forth.
A lot of times when I think about like a new idea or a new process, I generally actually try to do two things. So the first off is that I actually try to figure out what exactly is going to be the meta skill or the meta thing that's going to move our business forward before I actually think of it as a problem or an opportunity. There's a lot of things we think we have to do in business, and the reality is that over the years I found that Just like if for those of you that time of the year we're thinking about New Year's resolutions, there's a lot of people that want to get healthier, lose weight, gain weight, gain muscle, all those types of things, right? A lot of coaches will tell you it's simple, right? Do something with your calorie and protein and exercise and do specific exercises. And it's the same thing in business. There's a lot of things that we think we have to do that we don't versus what we have to do. So the first thing I actually ask myself is it worth my time or my resources or my team's time to actually do? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that simply once we actually find something that we do, basically we go all in. And why I say that is because a lot of times I think there is just so much hesitation on if it's going to work, if it's not going to work. But if you believe in something and you believe at your core that it's going to work, then you go whatever you can to make it happen. I think it's the biggest thing that I found in most of my journey is that I try to continue to remember that even with all the mistakes I've made, the next thing I do, if I believe in it, I better go in 100%.
Well, one of the things you're talking about right there is analysis paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
Many people call it, is where, people read 700 books trying to succeed about self-help, everything, literally everything in the book, every book in the book, so to speak, and they get nowhere and they go nowhere. What do you have to say to those people?
I think there's two parts. If you're analyzing, you have to ask yourself very simply, first and foremost, are you really analyzing? Are you really actually taking time to do some deep thinking and thinking through it there? Or are you just basically struck by fear, literally the unknown? There's a lot of things in this entrepreneurial journey where you're going to have to do things without having the clarity to know what's going to happen. Even as I've gotten older, and I don't think I'm old by any stretch of the imagination, but, being in your 40s, I have some years behind me there. And when people think that, oh, you have experience, you know what you're doing, I'm going to say this to everybody. I have people that are in their 20s that are doing better in business than people that are in their 50s with all the experience. So even with experience and all the know-how, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because every one of us is trying to do the best thing we can. Whether it works or not, that's just up to us. That's not up to execution. Sometimes it's just up to opportunity. So the people that are in this paralysis analysis is, first and foremost, if you're just stuck by fear or not knowing what you need to do, suck it up and just get going. You'll figure it out. But the part of you that is, if you really are thinking about what you need to do with your life, where you want to go, you really just don't know, don't let people force you forward. Sometimes the best thing to do when you don't know what to do is to do nothing, to give yourself a break, to give yourself some space to go through it. And if you really honor that, and if you really honor that time to think through it, I think you will find that answers start to come up more intuitively rather than you trying to think so hard about it.
So talk to me now. This is a crucial part about business, or, at least so I've heard. I think it is, at least in regards to my business, which is networking. So how does somebody build high value connections in an effective manner? Right. So, I see you've already, I'm like I said, I have your Instagram open. I have questions open. One of the questions I had since one of your pinned Instagram posts is Gary V. You have a picture with him, and you're even followed by this guy's CEO, Ryan White, who has like 3 million followers on Instagram. Right. So talk to me about how you built those connections, as well as in general, how somebody can build high value connections.
Yeah, there's only two ways. And one answer some of you are not going to like. But if for those of you, George, I'm kind of thinking of you, but and you may not be able to do this. Sometimes the access to the people that are at those stages and at those levels of their life is to literally spend the money. To spend the money to get into those networking rooms, to spend the money to get into those masterminds, to spend the money into getting into those places. And sometimes people go like, well, that's no fair, Alex. That seems like, not the right way to do it. Listen, that's the point. That's one of the reasons why when you're successful in business, you get to find ways to shortcut your way. And that's what finances allows you to do there. And sometimes that is in the relationship space. But that being said, nobody wants that. If you don't have the money, then you got to find another way. And the other way I always tell people is that you better get really good at a skill. You better get really good at one thing. And the reason why I say this is that even the people that are at the highest levels, and you can think any of them, the Gary Vaynerchuks, the Ryan Wrights, the Tony Robbins, you name it, name the person there, okay? I find that if you become really good at something, great people will follow. I also think that when we think about ultimately at the end of the day, when it comes to business and what it really takes for anybody to rise their business to another level, you have to understand that, yes, people are an important part of that. Your network is an important part of that. Interacting with people is an important part of that. But people also very simply want people that do a great job. Like, we don't hire anybody, no matter how much. Like, I have some great friends. I would never hire them at my company. Love watching football with them, but I'm never hiring them. They don't have the skill requisite that I need in my company. But Erica, my salesperson, she's phenomenal. She's amazing. She does a great job at her job there. She's going to kill it, not only just in my company, but in this industry, because she continues every single day. In the morning at 6 a.m., I'll get a report from her saying, I've worked on this sales skill. I've worked on this client. She can see she's hustling. She's grinding. She's trying to get really good at it. That's what matters. So ultimately, at the end of the day, the way they start networking, if you don't have the money to get into the rooms, get really good at what you do and showcase that to people. It'll allow you to rise a lot faster than most people think.
Talk to me a little bit about how your daily routine looks like, right? From, the moment that you become conscious, right? Maybe it starts in your bed, maybe it starts getting out of bed, I don't know. But from the moment you gain consciousness to the moment you go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, George, I don't even know if I'm conscious when I'm working out first thing in the morning. So like, I think I literally just I swear I just probably fall out of bed and I just kind of roll myself to a gym. And, I'll tell people this is that most of these people, and I know I do this as well. And I try to talk a lot about this in my story. It's kind of something I'm trying to change in my messaging here in 2025 is that, listen, I'm taking my clients to Aruba. I'm doing the cool things. We're doing the fancy things. But do you know the people that I know, like myself, that are really successful? They do three things almost every single day. Okay. Number one, they have some sort of personal growth routine, whether it's a morning routine, whether it's an evening routine, whether it's the middle of the day. I don't know anybody that doesn't have some sort of routine that they're doing to take care of themselves, their mindset, their health, because as all of you grow into your world, so like in my Instagram world, right, I've got, we have hundreds and hundreds of clients that are meeting me every day. All these people that are reaching out to me. You better have the health and emotional bandwidth to be able to handle a lot of different emotions, a lot of different people every day, your team, etc. So one is what is your personal growth routine? The second thing is that you have to control your finances, your calendar, and your time. Don't know anybody that literally doesn't look at their day and decide what they're not going to do as much as what they are going to do. So as silly as it sounds, when I look at my day, I will look at things and say, I got to cancel that meeting. I got to stop doing that. Hey, can you take this off my plate? So instead of me actually getting in my email and responding to this request or that media post or this client thing, I start by making sure that I have my day set up. Because if you don't have control of how your day is working and also how you're spending your money, you can't get ahead. Everyone's going to be asking you for something. And especially to get more success, that's important. So that's the second thing. Third thing for me, George, like I said, I'm very boring. I got a 2-year-old, I got a 5-year-old, I got a wife. So really, when I'm not working, I'm with them. And that means changing diapers, feeding kids, picking up things that are broken, picking up the dog poop that they pooed in the living room, all those types of things. So like any other typical person every single day. But I think for most people, when they think about the routines on the day-to-day basis there, I think the one area that I think almost, I can always see it. The people that are just starting out versus people that are at 6 figures, that are 7 figures, that are 8 figures. And I'm not a billionaire. I've met a couple billionaires and I'm not running my day like that, but they are truly, truly, truly taking advantage of their day.
That leads me to my next question. What do most highly successful people have in common?
Yeah, I mean, let me go deeper in that schedule and finance piece. Okay. The very first thing that I'll say from a business perspective that a lot of the most successful business people I know is that they will be willing to go beyond what the budget says is working. There's a lot of this corporate environment where you have to get budgets approval, a lot of those types of things. But I'll tell you something. The rich, the wealthy, the successful from an entrepreneurial perspective, they will actually look for opportunities to make money, to grow their business, to make an impact, regardless of what it's going to cost. Now, I'm not saying they're stupid or all of us are we'll just spend whatever, but I do find that if there's something that is really worthwhile, they'll find a way to make it happen, whether it's through their own equity, whether it's through debt. They will find a way to make it happen, and they'll keep taking that bet again and again and again. Which kind of brings me to my second point. The second thing I find in most successful people is very simply commitment. And that word is such a little okay, yeah, you're going to be committed. I mean, literally, if they say, hey, I'm going to do A, they will do A. It's why a lot of the most successful people don't make a lot of commitments. They will say no way more than they say yes, because they've trained themselves to understand that as soon as they say yes, they know they built this habit that says, I am going to do this. Just like you, right? It's 4 o'clock on Friday, right? I could say, you know what? I don't need to sit here with George. I got so many other things to do. But this awesome guy here said, you know what? Hey, would you want to do a podcast? You know what? Let's do it, because it's one of my missions to do more of these this upcoming year. So guess what? Instead of me saying, you know what, I don't want to do this, it's like, you know what? This guy asked me. I clearly know he took a shot by asking me to come onto a show. Let's do it. So I think at the end of the day, the second thing is that understand the difference between yes and no, and yes is a 100% absolute, and a no is a 100% no. The third, and this, I think we've all heard this, is that it's not about who you know, or not what you know, but who you know. My relationships are so important to me. And ultimately, please know that I don't mean these relationships as like, oh, all these rich people I hang out with. I don't. Most of my crew is people that, you know, are your typical neighbors. They're great people. I think you have to understand that your relationships are the ones that you cater to and the ones that you build. It's not what people come with you at. It's the ones that you build. So bear in mind that you can only have so many people that are that close and that deep in your life. So you better be careful who you decide to choose.
With that being said, when you're talking about the 100%, 100% no, 100% yes, 100% no, that leads to my next question, which is cold outreach, right? So this is part of networking, but something that a lot of people, especially starting out, tend to do is cold outreach. And it's something that even the most successful people on earth have done, right? There's countless stories of billionaires, people starting out by messaging somebody. I mean, there's the infamous story of Steve Jobs as a young kid calling Bill Hewlett, I think is his name. He's the founder of Hewlett Packard. So talk to me about cold outreach. How do you even get people on a high level to notice? How do you get, and I'm talking about not like for me, but like for other people, like how would somebody get such a high, because I see podcasts too do it, right? Where they get their first podcast is like Jack Dorsey or like, Bill Gates. I'm like, how'd they do it? So how is that even possible?
Yeah. So I'll give the secret sauce at the end, because I always have to keep you guys waiting. But I think you have to start with basically the blocking and tackling for those that watch football. Like you have to do these two things. And this is something, George, I just don't see people do anymore. Like I actually think there's a bigger opportunity in cold outreach than there's ever been in any part of our world, because yes, so many more people are doing it, but they're doing it so poorly that at the end of the day, like it literally actually allows you to shine because of the message that you're sending. So the first thing I always tell people is that you have to be persistent. And I know that's cliche, but you cannot stop messaging people. You have to do it. There's a famous story about somebody wanting to actually work with Tony Robbins and actually have Tony Robbins invest in a sales company. And he spent 17 years reaching out to Tony Robbins or Tony Robbins Network or Tony Robbins people, or trying to find a way to get into this 15-minute meeting with Tony Robbins. And that 15-minute meeting turned into his company being bought by Tony Robbins and going from like $10 million all the way to $500 million literally overnight. So the one is that if you are persistent, you have to understand that that's okay. Annoy people. That's okay. Annoy everybody. Okay. It doesn't matter who it is. They can say, leave me alone. But that doesn't mean just being persistent with them, being persistent with other people in the network or other people that are in their sphere, trying to see if you can get people to make introductions, trying to see if you can make people get interactions there. Sometimes the path isn't always direct. Sometimes you have to go around and about to find the ways to make those connections. But the second thing, and this is the thing I think I see in cold outreach that I just don't see it enough anymore. I see so many bland messages. I see so many messages that go like, I love your content. It's so great. Thank you so much. Can I sell you something? Like, okay, like, what are you doing? Like, why do you think I'm going to respond to that message? You clearly didn't read my content. You clearly didn't check out what I'm doing there. You just saw that I had a bunch of followers and you're trying to get something from me. So I think at the end of the day, when you're cold outreaching for somebody, what can you do to make that person's life better? What can you do to add value to them? What can you do to make them feel appreciated? I would rather get an email or a direct message from somebody that says, wow, Alex, I read your post. I love this certain post. I really liked it. I have a question for you. I know you are a busy person there, so I'm going to make it easier. I am struggling with my sales. If you were me, would you do 1 blank, 2 blah, 3 this? Just answer the number and that'll be totally fine. Thanks, appreciate you. And if you don't respond, no worries at all. I understand you're busy. Like those types of messages are going to get somebody to respond. They're going to get somebody to do it. Does it mean it's going to turn into something? No. But when you get a message like that, it shows appreciation. It shows consideration. It shows a genuine human interaction. I don't think this is, and people love to think this is like, oh, this generation does it better than this generation. I don't think that is at all. I think it's just sadly, there's too much training on automation, on AI bots, on ChatGPT that people forgot. There is just a very simple human to human interaction that can happen. And I think the more you do that, the better. Last, and I know that, I know, George, that I told you I gave you like as a secret sauce. If you're trying to get a person of a higher ilk, you better have something they're interested in actually connecting with you on. If you're trying to go after a business person, you're trying to get in that business person's world by selling them something in marketing, good luck. Good luck. You're never going to get in that person's world. But if you know, and we'll just use Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, if you know Gary Vaynerchuk is a big wine person, and oh, that's right, he is a huge wine person, great. Why are you not actually finding ways to actually interact in his world by actually sharing some of the best wines, right? So one company I built, basically our whole marketing strategy was to send the best CEOs their favorite whiskey and their favorite alcohol. That was our strategy. A lot of people that are successful don't care about you from a business perspective or a business perspective. What they care about is relationship. They want to have more fun. They want to have more enjoyment. So bear in mind, think about the things that are interested in. Be interested in them, and you'll find out you'll have faster interactions.
Noted. What is the most successful client you've ever had?
I have worked with 2 billionaires at this point. And so the 2 billionaires, I worked with them more on, they were people that wanted some more life advice. And I think that what you guys will find is that, they weren't billionaires at the time when I worked with them, but a lot of stuff that, when you work with somebody that is the interesting thing is that any of my clients that are under 8 figures, all they want to talk about is business. All they want to talk about is business strategy, business tactics, marketing, sales, personal branding, all this stuff. All my clients that are above 8 figures, they want to talk about life, how to think, how to analyze. How would you do this? Like they want to understand the patterns. So one thing I find with people that are very successful, maybe this goes back to that earlier question, is that my most successful clients, even the ones that went from like 0 to like 8 figures, the most successful ones didn't ask questions on like, what would you write on this social media post? They would say, what was the thought process of writing these 7 media posts and what were you trying to get out of it? So they're trying to get bigger questions and answers from it. So everyone there is trying to actually grow. I always tell people, listen, like I will do the best I can. I've got my system and process and things I'll do there, but it's also your job to start getting better at asking better questions. That to me is the biggest difference between the people that are struggling to 6 to 7 and also 8 figures. You got to ask the right questions. When you ask the right questions or ask better questions, you'll just get better answers.
The last question I'm going to ask, because I know you're hard off in 5 minutes. What advice do you have for young people?
I think I give you guys a lot of credit. I give a lot of people a lot of credit, especially the generation that's coming up. I'm hiring a lot of people from your generation. And the reason why I'm hiring people from your generation is because I think that sadly, there's a lot of people that basically say, oh, you guys don't get it. You don't understand it. And I think that's just a lot of bullshit, for lack of better words. What I say is I give you guys a lot of credit is that one things that I think the people that are younger understand that maybe sometimes the older generation doesn't is they understand that the world is moving a whole lot faster than it was 10, 20 years ago. And so why I say that is that I think it's important to understand that you need to lean into that. You don't need to lean into everything we have figured out. You need to lean into our experience of thinking through things, but understanding how you can apply it to what your world is today. I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing that I try to remind everybody is that, my generation we did not grow up. I grew up, like, the internet was the thing. The internet came out when I was in college for everybody there. I didn't have a Facebook account till like I was actually an adult. And I tell you this is because it means that a lot of the interactions that a lot of people that are younger have been online, have been social, have been on social media. So the part of the thing I also think sometimes is that it's hard. Relationships and people are hard. It's hard to figure that out. And I want to give you that credit, saying, like, just stay true to yourself. Continue to work on yourself. Continue to work on who you are, what you want to be, how you see yourself. Because I think ultimately that's going to help you figure out what you want to do in this business world. And it's also going to help you figure out the relationships and also the networking that you're going to have to do. But at the end of the day, I think the easiest and simplest thing that everybody says is that it's going to be okay when all is said and done. Being broke, having been broken, having my heart broken, having had somebody that I proposed to reject me, having lost a multi-million-dollar company, having all these horrible things that happen, I am here. I'm better. I've got great kids. Having not invested in Bitcoin when my friend said, "Hey, why don't you get into Bitcoin?" Right? All these things, right? It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay.
All right. Any final words before I stop the recording and we'll talk after the show?
No, George, just great questions. And just for everybody, like I said, if you need something, just hit me up on Instagram there. Ask the right questions. You might get an answer from me.
All right. In 3, 2, 1.